Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the We Know Traitors podcast over here on RHAP. I'm, of course, your host, the Duke of Deception, Pooya Vakili, ready to break down Season 2, Episode 2 of Traitors Canada. We got a banishment, we got a murder on our hands, we got our first roundtable, lots to talk about here. And with me is my lovely co-host, the one and only Brian Evan Scally. Scally, how you doing?
Pooya, hello. I'm doing so well. Hello. I love that you come in as a podcaster with just an innate degree of confidence, thinking you'll get my middle name at some point, but very excited to talk about the episode.
Listen, I get about what 10 to 11 tries a year because of the nature of Traitors Canada. So I gotta shoot the shot, see if it lands. Although the thing is, you're never gonna tell me if I'm right. So it's not
if you're
like
right, I'll tell you.
Okay. Have I been close at any point?
Define close. I don't know. We'll talk later.
We'll talk later. So right now we'll talk about the Traitors Canada. So Scally, episode 2 is now done and dusted. And so far, just overarching feeling, what have you been feeling about this season?
I'm really enjoying this season. I think that everyone is here to play. I think that a lot of people are very good confessionalists in television. They really pop on camera. So I have been enjoying the cast quite a bit. And I think that the decisions have been pretty interesting. I think people have been, whether they are being more strategic or flailing a little bit, I find everyone is bringing something to the show.
I feel similarly. I feel like typically the first season is always going to have growing pains, especially with Canada. There was definitely going to be a situation where, all right, some of the cast have studied up, some of the cast are coming in kind of raw. And with a season 2, it feels like you're almost guaranteed that everyone has at least watched season 1 of Canada. And I think that's a good shout. When you also factor in that the first season had a traitor as the winner, it's a good thing because I think it's going to make a lot of people work harder to try and figure stuff out. And it's resulted in a very fun cast and a very fun game so far. We, by the end of the episode, are down to 20 people. I would still say there's at least 3 or 4 people on this cast that I do not know yet, really, outside of some third-party comments that are made by other contestants. But overall, I'm very into it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that they'll pop up as we go. So, whether it be third person perspective that we're getting to know them as now, I do think that a lot of people are coming into focus in a way that I have found very enjoyable.
And I can't wait to talk about all of them with you. Now, before we start diving into these, you will be getting exit interviews. We will be having them. We will be releasing that on its own separately. So if you're looking for that, it should be on right this very feed, or if you're watching it on video in the YouTube channel, go to the videos, you'll be able to find it there. But also it is the start of a season, and I always like to ask up top if you could go ahead and leave a rating and review for the podcast. It helps people find the podcast. It brings more people into our wacky world of traitors. You can do so by either going to WeKnowTheTraitors.com, as you can see below, or go to robinswebsite.com/traitors, TRAITORS. Either website works, so give that a shot. Appreciate it as always. Now let's get into it, Scally. So we start off with breakfast here. We kind of soft launch into breakfast before we get the events of what happened last night. They did cliffhanger us, of course, where we didn't know who got murdered. But what I wanted to flag immediately was Kirkland is part of the first group that comes in and immediately says, "Hey, Rebecca, you and I, we need to chat later. I have some things I need to talk to you about."
Yeah. Just want to give you a little warning that your name was brought up yesterday a couple of times, so you should probably handle that.
Yeah, clean that up.
Which, can be a nice thing to do. I don't know if it's always the smartest, and I'm sure we'll get there eventually on whether this would be a recommended move in the future. But a lot of names came up. Maybe Rebecca's more than most.
I feel like what I'm learning more and more with regards to watching the show is if I'm a faithful, I think I'm learning more new ways to play the game. I think one of the things I would not want, and obviously you want to keep vocal and talk and don't seem very quiet because that can seem suspect down the line. But if someone's name is heavily out there, I'm going to be like the 6th person to add to it. As in, I want like 2 people to be very vocal that this is the person who's suspect. I want to be the 6th person who basically said, "I agree, I'll vote them." No, I don't want to talk to them. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want to engage with them in any way. And this for me was a little bit spooky because I was like, you are doing this in front of a couple people that are not Rebecca. And if they feel a type of way about you, or if Rebecca is to go out and Rebecca is faithful, that could look bad on you. And you just don't want to risk any of that.
Yeah, I think people got a little comfortable with this first night. We are just waiting on every single person who's not on the short list to show up. And I think people had that night to get to sleep, to get a little too comfortable, and maybe are starting to make a couple of mistakes here. They weren't on edge enough. And now we see Kirkland going ahead and giving Rebecca kind of an unnecessary heads up here.
Yeah, so then we do get the go ahead to see what's going on in the Traitors Tower or the turret, whichever one you want to call it, or conclave. You know, all the shows call it something different. But we get to see some insight into last night's galley. And obviously, we came into this episode with a clear objective of, okay, there's 5 people who volunteered themselves for the death row, which means one of these 5 are guaranteed to leave. And already we had seen Kira make it clear that she does not want Lauren or Hinoch to go anywhere. These 2 are her people. They are sticking around, and that's not going to happen, which really left us with 3 options.
Yeah. 3 options, which I think you could see as they entered the room. Some entered to more applause than others, I did find. So felt like, maybe that's editing, who knows? But people might have had their favorites. Even some people being like, well, I would be really upset if anyone went home, but especially certain people. So you have the others coming into a little bit quieter applause.
Yeah, we immediately are left with a short list of Kevin, Chris, and Dylan. One of these 3 will end up being our first murdered of the season. And ultimately, they make the right choice in having Dylan be spared, because Dylan had put some suspicions on himself by being a little bit weird in the last go around, having that moment where it was like, all right, as the 5 death row people, blah, blah, blah. And people are like, that's a weird thing to say. We're going to keep our eyes on Dylan. It's like, perfect. If you're going to keep an eye on Dylan, you might push him out. I don't need to do it, which left Chris and Kevin. And unfortunately, Scally, Chris is going to be our first victim of the Traitors this season.
Yeah, it would have been sad. Always sad to lose anyone this early, but you know, very sad to lose Chris. Seemed like a very fun character, and unfortunately for him, they do say that he seemed like a big threat. And when Chris says your name, that holds a lot of weight.
I mean, that's the big thing of having someone seem, first of all, most cleared as faithful in the list of 5. So they're probably not going to have sus on them. They're probably not going to get voted out. That's one thing. The other thing being, if you seemed influential, they're definitely not going to want you to stick around, because, you know, if you're influential but you're not looking at me, that's good. That's great, because you're going to name other people. But if at any point you turn your around and say, how about you, Pooya? How about you as the traitor? Then it's a problem. So that's kind of why Chris goes out here. Chris also definitely showed physical acumen and capability in the missions, which they did want to save, but they didn't want to save everybody that's physically capable. They don't need all of them.
If they could have saved all of them, they would have loved to. But it's also like 5 pretty physical people all volunteered. Like we weren't really left with a lot of options. Everyone was kind of a bad option for murder in some way or another. So unfortunately, it just seems like Chris was the least bad for these traitors.
Yeah, what's funny to me too is back at the breakfast, we see Cedric. Cedric has been an enigma so far this season. Just the man is always ready to give his 2 cents. And he comes in and he's like, nah, I think Chris or Lauren are gone. It's one of them 2. Sure enough, now Chris leaves.
Yeah. And I almost am like, does this make him less suspicious? Because he was so vocally predicting that this would be the case, and the traitors might be trying to hide a little bit more, maybe not telegraph the move, maybe even like, are they doing the double bluff though, and saying like, Chris is definitely going to leave. Like a traitor would never say this, but I think a traitor is going to leave. So I don't know. Cedric doing the most for sure.
Absolutely the most, which again, it's funny to me to think back to who Cedric's son is.
Look, I love Tyshawn. He didn't not do the most at times.
Maybe I'm hazy on the memory, because I didn't feel like he did this much the most.
No.
Some, not a lot.
No, definitely not the loud social moves. But maybe the he took his shots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely took his shots when he needed to. Cedric here maybe taking shots when he does not need to, but we'll unpack that even further. What I did want to point out, though, from this breakfast, from the traders specifically, is that Netta feels a little iffy on her fellow traders. And I feel like they're making it very clear in multiple confessionals that, listen, I'll take them as far as I can, but I don't trust them.
Yeah, I mean, Netta, who said that she would like murder her own mother in the game. So,
Mm-hmm.
not super surprising that she's not trusting of anyone. I think that as soon as you are a traitor, it is partially like, okay, these are the people that I am told I'm supposed to work with, but also probably the two people that I need to be the most scared of throwing me under the bus at any point during the game.
Yeah, we did also have Nick talk about how when he came into breakfast, first thing he's trying to do is look at Kira and see what's going on with Kira, because he doesn't necessarily know if she's the traitor, but if there's anyone he's going to figure out, it's her.
Yeah. And I think that just having any piece of information in the game is good when so much of this is trying to piece the puzzles together. It's not necessarily that he's going to outright accuse her and be like, that's my sister. I know her. I know she's a traitor. Like, he just needs to start putting pieces together so he can start narrowing down worlds that could exist. And so if he's able to figure out that Kira is, in fact, either a traitor or a faithful, well, then that is many less possibilities that exist in the game.
Yeah, now I want to get your thoughts on this moment here where Michael John presents a question to the breakfast, and he's basically saying something to the effect of, so if someone died, if someone was murdered overnight, that means the traitors are sitting here right now. And how are they going to act? Like, do they even give a shit?
How do they feel? Do they feel no remorse at ever? Are they terrible people? It felt a little over the top, and like I could never imagine how a traitor would feel in this very moment. And I think that maybe him being told that there were eyes on him already is making him play even more actively than he may otherwise, because this was not great.
I feel like just ad lib. It's breakfast. Just say a couple. Oh, that's true. Oh, that. Wow, that's an interesting theory. Don't do this. It's like, let's get into the mindset of the. So, if you were a trader, how would you behave? Just so I know what to do for myself.
Yeah. What should I be doing differently, everybody?
Yeah.
Any tips?
If you could assess my behavior right now, would you say you're moderately marinated, excessively marinated, or you don't buy what I'm selling at all?
Do I look like I'm giving the correct amount of shits for a faithful? I'm just curious.
It's so funny because right after this, we do hear from both Netta and Kira kind of being like, what is this man doing? And we already could tell the vibes at the tower that Michael John was kind of going to be the odd one out of the three. Despite Netta wanting anybody but Kira to be there, I think very quickly Netta might be realizing Kira might be my person here of the three.
Yeah, it's a type of thing of Kira is the long-term threat, but who might blow up my game in this very moment? That is Michael John for Netta. I think,
Easily.
yeah, such a dangerous player, because it seems like this could be a ticking time bomb where everyone is going to go after him eventually. And when he feels backed into a corner, is he going to pull out the card that we've seen many traders use in the past? Not me. Look at who I know for a fact is another trader, and throw them under the bus.
Yeah, Michael John's performance this episode, he is not long for this game.
Yeah, I wonder if there could be a comeback, but I do think this will not be the last of errors that we talk about for Michael John.
That's very fair to say.
We'll get there.
Yeah, so we end up having Crisco, who Netta called the smartest one to get rid of the bunch, which I do think I agree with. Chris took this big death row risk, and now the 10K was raised for somebody else. Unfortunate for him, but we do get Kareem coming to breakfast here. And might I just say at the top here, both this outfit, the outfit at the mission, and the outfit at the round table, the variety of looks we're getting this season already are at a 10.
Yeah, never mind the traitors. Karina's the one slaying in the mansion at all times. She is just such a good host. I'm so excited she's back.
Same. Absolutely love this for her. So then we get to the people talking before the mission happens. What was some stuff that stuck out to you?
I thought it was interesting that Kirkland does, in fact, have this talk with Rebecca, and it at least attempts to. When Dylan walks in, they say, "Can we have a minute?" And he said, "Perfect. The two people I was looking for, unless you want me to give you a minute, like you just asked me to do."
Yeah, Dylan was like, "Oh, I'm just looking around," and then proceeded to sit down. It's like, Dylan, read the room, friend.
I think Dylan's strategy has been interesting. He says that he purposefully played his personality up so that he wouldn't be murdered. Another strategy to not be murdered is not volunteer to be one of the murderable people on the first day, but sure. I do wonder if this will come back to haunt him. I don't know. Dylan is being a little bit of an erratic character here.
I feel like, obviously, like you said, step one, don't volunteer to be on death row. Easy enough. Now, in the event that you do, I think he did play it really well to not be murdered first. I think his name is going to continue to be there, but this is the prime time to kind of fix that perception and go through and be okay, because at the very least, the initial first impressions for the traitors now is that Dylan has some sauce on him. We're not going to murder Dylan. So until they revisit that topic, especially with like 20 other people on the cast, you're probably going to be fine for a while as long as you clean it up through the social game and have people not banish you. So I
Yeah.
feel like, in a weird way for me, this is a very risky move. So no one should ever actively choose to do it. But if you're someone who feels like, if my feet aren't to the fire, I might be a little too quiet and reserved, this is not a bad avenue to go through if you think about it.
I think you want the lightest amount of sus on you, as in like a little bit more than average at most, but
At most.
yeah, at being the highest on the list, if you're going to start treading water in week 1 of the game, eventually you're going to tire out. And whether that's because you physically tire out or other people push you under, one of these is going to happen eventually, and I worry that just it's either eventually we just got to vote him out because he's too chaotic, or okay, no one believes that someone would play a traitor game this way, so we just have to murder him because he's no longer a believable traitor option.
Yeah, I feel like Dylan kind of finds himself in a lucky spot from where I'm standing, because there are actively people that are suspect ahead of him. So he has time to patch things up. But with a different cast, this could have already been the death blow at roundtable number 1.
Yep, and I'm interested to see, because at least he's trying something, and so I do think that Dylan is going to be making moves throughout the season,
Mhm.
and we've seen plenty of people take riskier moves and have comebacks, so I'm not counting him out.
Yeah, no, neither am I by any stretch of the imagination. Um, but what's funny is we do get Kirkland in confessional, I believe, saying that he's gonna try and be behind the scenes now and kind of push the name behind the scenes. He's not gonna be doing it out in the open any further. And like we said earlier, kind of be like the sixth person and be like, yeah, I think this person should go. I did not get the vibe that that's what Kirkland's doing this episode.
Yeah, behind the scenes, aka not in groups but only in one-on-ones, but that has made everyone more sketched out, seeing him just constantly pull people to the side. It looks like he's hiding things. It looks like he is not saying the same things to different people. So I think that Kirkland is now looked at as a very active game player, and I don't think it's an inaccurate read on him.
No, definitely not. I feel like, so Rebecca clearly now knows that people are looking at her and is starting to throw out, I think it's Cedric. I think Cedric's kind of suspect. And what works in Rebecca's favor here is that Kira and Rebecca have some form of a relationship struck already. And Kira's not happy with Cedric throwing out Rebecca's name.
I love this. How dare you throw out my friend's name to me? This is so funny, because at first glance, I was like, I don't like this. Like, I don't think that we need to be putting all the attention on ourselves, but it almost makes Kira look like a more emotional player than I think she really is. And I think that people are thinking, oh, we can tell exactly what Kira's thinking because she's telling us at every second what she's thinking. She's not willing to betray her friends. So if I can cozy up to her, I'll be safe in terms of the voting. And so I think Kira is actually playing like a step above where we see many people playing as a traitor.
I think so. She's been very much up and ahead of things, but also is doing it in such a way where she's not really looked as a suspect. I think this is the perfect person to tie yourself to early to be like, this is my friend. I do not agree with this, because in the event that this person now goes out and is innocent, your upsetness can look like a very good thing.
Yeah. And I could see her even like murdering Rebecca down the line and be like, how dare you? Like, my friend. So I do think that Kira, knew, let's keep this vote a little longer on my side. But at the very beginning, I was like, I don't know if I like the visibility spike with Kira right now.
Well, I feel like the traders typically will get quite a bit of content at the beginning. We look back at last season, and Kuzi, Mike, and Mel B all got decent amount of content out the gate as traders, which makes sense. But Kira's definitely, I feel like, getting, of the three, I would say Kira's getting the more fleshed out story so far.
I think so too. And I even was more so talking about like in the house how visible she is than on the episode. I feel like she's a
Well,
very active player and people are talking about her a lot, but that's just what we're seeing.
yeah. I feel like it's, so far it doesn't feel like it's too negative of talking about her. It's like positive, so the visibility is not too bad, especially because with this cast, I feel like if more vocal people start leaving, eventually you're gonna be like, why are the quiet people not talking and still here? What's going on
Yeah.
with that? And then Kira could seem innocent through that. So I feel like Kira's very positive though, that no one said anything about me or Netta, and that's good. And Cedric's gonna help with that agenda, because Cedric is saying anybody's name but them right now, which is kind of a good spot to be in.
Yeah. And I mean, if I have Netta telling me someone that they are just like so open and charming and like charismatic, like I'm gonna believe Netta. I think that it's probably an accurate read. And so Kira's probably the person I'm the most excited about on this cast right now.
I think it also helps that Kira has this sibling twist with Nick as
Yes.
well. Like there's a lot of intrigue with her. So I think they nailed it with picking Kira as a traitor. I've loved everything I've seen so far. So
Agreed.
then
Agreed.
we're on our way to the challenge. Did any of the car conversations speak to you?
I think that there was a couple things here where like Netta's trying to get clarification on why Rebecca's name is getting brought up so much. Yeah, I've heard it brought up, but no one will tell me why. And the fact that it's simply based off of a social read. She changed after the round table, and we are all firmly locked in on it. I think that Netta's doing a good job of like being a part of the conversation, but not directing it.
Exactly. Again, fourth or fifth person to be like, I've heard this and I do this, but why? Can anyone tell me why? Like, I don't have a problem with it. I just more curious. I think that's a good spot to be in. What I would like for us to do, Scally, in these exits as we go along, is find out how many people know of Netta's gameplay and TV presence of the past, because I feel like the number one thing I saw in the discourse in the last week was, wow, of course Netta's the traitor. They should immediately know. It's so obvious. But if they don't know Netta's show like that, or they only know, oh, you were on Big Brother, they don't know how you did, especially you didn't win, then no harm, no foul. So I'm very curious how much people will know Netta's abilities coming into this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure she hopes no one, but I don't know if that's super realistic. And I think even if a couple people know, it will make the rounds eventually. But I don't know. We saw Suri on Big Brother. That doesn't always materialize into something super meaningful. So I have faith in Netta that she will be able to overcome any hindrance her reputation may cause.
Same, especially right now. It's still early enough. Playing the game like this is kind of perfect. Again, being involved is good. Just don't be quiet, and you should be in a decent spot. Because it doesn't sound like anyone's trying to meta it and be like, all right, well, the Big Brother person got to go. So
Yeah,
you're okay for now.
for sure, for sure.
Well, let's Trojan horse this mission, shall we? Because first of all, Kareen comes in on horseback again, like I said earlier, looks incredible. And then we get this challenge. Scally, they have this big ass Trojan horse thing that they've put together, and the objective is relatively simple. They have to, as a team, push this Trojan horse down this road. There are 10 questions along the road. They have to stop, and one person volunteers to go read the question. They have to handcuff themselves to the post, meaning they can no longer help with the pushing from here on out. And they're going to be asked a question. They have to answer it correctly. If they do, they get $1,000 added to the prize pot. If they're wrong, they get sandbags they have to add to the Trojan horse to weigh it down even further, now with one person less. What did you think of this mission?
Well, I love a large unnecessary prop, so I thought the Trojan horse was super fun and a great visual, but I thought it was interesting that the traitors picked the answers rather than like a house vote. So I think that we probably end up with very different results had the house voted on this as a whole.
We'd have $8,000 and they clear the challenge, I think.
Yeah. I think the fact that they're all competing as one team makes it difficult, because then you could just literally poll the audience as you're going. Maybe a little too easy, but I thought that it was fun nonetheless. I thought it inspired a good amount of fighting, even if they're saying like, this game is trying to make us fight, guys. Like, they're still fighting.
Oh, it's like we're acknowledging this, but still screw you for saying my name. I don't like that. I initially thought, well, that's weird because the traitors can just answer whatever they want. So why does it matter? And then I was like, oh, this is genius, because, you know, for a long time, people have talked about how the traitors should like try and sabotage like the mole, which is obviously a different show. But I like this because the answers caused chaos. They caused people to vocally say, no, I think she is a liar. And then that's not the answer, but now you vocalize it. So some drama is churned. And almost want to say in the history of the traitors, which I know is not true probably, but when they did the slow countdown at the end of like 10, 9, 8, they did not clear it, Scally. They did not pass go. They do not collect 10,000, or in that case was like 3K. They don't make any money, which I thought was great. I love that that happened.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, the timer actually mattered on the traitors. Like, that is such a novel concept that they weren't just handed it. I still think that maybe we counted them down a little slower and then just still decided they weren't going to win, because it was like, all right, you have 10 seconds and they're 3 miles away. And then somehow they're just barely at the finish line when they're counting down 3, 2, 1. But I am okay with this. They'll probably get another chance at the end to make up this money in the final mission, but I think they need to lose a mission every once in a while, especially when they make really bad decisions like this.
Yeah, like they just made 10K for Death Row. I'm happy that then it's like neutralized with this 10K here almost, ironically enough. Now, I want to flag a key moment that I found to be important for the future. So when they get to question 9, they get that, they go Mike for which guess will definitely never make it to finale. They go with Mike, they get a sandbag. And then we arrive at the crossroads of, hey, we can continue, we can stop for question 10, or we can just push for the end. We do not have the time to do a question probably. And at this point, Dylan tells Kirkland to shut the F up because in the midst of all the chaos, Dylan's like, no, we're doing the question. And it ends up costing them. I'm very excited with the combination of the Dylan interrupting the Kirkland Rebecca conversation earlier, now with the Dylan telling Kirkland to shut the F up. Is this going to be the rivalry of the season that we're going to see?
I hope so. I like them both, and I would also like to see them argue quite a bit. But that holds true of many people on the cast. I am kind of looking at Dylan after this, like, yeah, the act that you were putting on of being very loud and arguing with people, I'm sure, because it totally makes sense that you are still acting, telling people to shut the F up in the middle of challenges. But maybe this is just Dylan. And I think, you know what, even better casting if that's the case.
And I want to flag this question for later on. Question 10 was, which would make the best traitor? Melinda, Mary Jo, Gail. Gail was the correct answer. So let's keep that in mind for later. Just might be important. Also, I'm realizing I have not put the graphic up this whole time. I'm going to put it up now because we're going to be talking about people, but heads up, if you're a visual viewer, you're going to get spoiled on who gets banished, even though if you're watching this far, you probably know already. So
Yes.
let's run it. There we go. Okay. So Scally, what about the fallout now of the mission? Because we got a lot of conversations here.
I love that for some reason we are 35 seasons into the Traitors internationally, and people are still talking about how the Traitors sabotaged the mission. They just chose money over us. And it's like, they didn't get it. Why did they have any incentive? So they're like, these genius traitors, they had a strategy. I don't know what strategy that would have been. But because surely they can't be like, why didn't they expose themselves on this mission? That can't be what they're asking, right?
Right. I feel like this comes up every time. And to me, it's very clear, right? They're risking a couple grand to win 100 grand. That's what they're doing. As long as you are now looking at 4 new people in this mission and none of them are the traitors because they were wise enough to not speak on things, specifically at least Kira and Netta, they kind of stayed out of all the mess of the mission. That's perfect for them. That now some of you are looking at Mary Jo. Some of you are looking at Rebecca, and Rebecca said Mary Jo's name. That's an issue. And Dylan tells Kirkland to shut the F up. This is perfect for them. They're living their best life. It's all the same prize pot, fam. Like, they are not making separate money from doing this.
Yeah, I do think that Aaron had a little bit of incentive to be pushing this point because he's like, they picked the wrong answers on purpose. Like saying that I couldn't be trusted because obviously that's not real. Obviously, no one could ever think that that was the true answer.
Where was Michael John to be like, so if you hear this question, would you then think that I'm more trustworthy, less trustworthy, or you agree with the traitors?
Should we have been talking? The traitors have been talking more during that challenge, or what should they be doing?
Oh my God, that's so funny. So another thing that does come up is that people are not really trusting Mike, not Michael John, Mike, the true crime podcaster, Mike. What did Mike do to deserve this heat?
I feel bad for Mike. I truly think he's just not connecting with people. And he even says, he's like, I'm just trying to find my people. I don't know where I belong. It's like, oh, like Mike. I don't know. I think people don't really have a good feel for him so far. And I do think that his struggle to connect could be read as like he is stressed over being a traitor and is like struggling to connect with people when he has to act inauthentically. So I understand why he's being sussed, but as Netta says, like, I know this person is a faithful, and now I just feel kind of bad.
Yeah, the other thing we get quite a bit of this episode, which I was very happy to hear, was a lot of conversation about how Cedric, man, he's all over the place. If he's not a traitor, he is the worst faithful I've ever seen. And we've talked about how it is beneficial to vote out someone you know is a faithful if they're A, not working with you, B, just causing a lot of noise. And I think a lot of people are starting to clock Cedric as just a messy faithful and are starting to get content with the idea of sending Cedric out those doors.
Because you could say that, okay, Cedric lands on me randomly and he starts bringing my name up. People won't take him seriously. He's known to just be spewing a lot of garbage. But it does kind of feel like maybe he's more effective than people are giving credit for, given the results of this episode.
Well, that's the thing is I'm curious if we ended the episode with people wanting to go for glory and being like, well, we don't know if Rebecca is a traitor or not, but we know Cedric isn't. He's just not someone that's going to be worth our time with regards to information and getting to the bottom of this. So let's go for gold. If it's not Rebecca, we mercy get rid of Cedric next.
I would want to vote someone like Cedric out so fast because I don't think the traitors are ever going to murder Cedric.
No.
And so therefore, I am more likely to be murdered.
Exactly.
Any person who will not be murdered brings my name one up the list. So I need him gone. And I know that we're probably not voting out a traitor, but I don't care. This is more about increasing my odds at night.
Yeah, I feel like going against someone like Cedric, 100% take him off the board so that maybe you can take his spot as someone who will not get murdered. Now, you don't want to be in the not get murdered because you're sus as hell. That would just kind of make you fodder for banishment. But I do think that if the traitors are not going to take the shot and they're leaving the shot for you, you might as well clear that as soon as possible, because all that's going to happen, the longer Cedric stays, he's always going to be in conversation to be banished, and he could end up surviving because people are like, well, let's take the shot at the next person, and then the murders are also going to be happening at that time too, and you could get clipped on that.
Yeah, because it's too early. Like I could see taking a shot later in the game, hoping like, okay, well, if I get a traitor, then maybe I could be recruited in that spot. But I think it's way too early to even start thinking about that. I think you just gotta take out the distractions and people that are going to be left in as distractions.
I agree wholeheartedly. Now, let's go back to Kirkland again, because Kirkland, we saw Kirkland mention, I'm going to be in the shadows. I'm not trying to push. That's not what I'm doing. But we see a conversation with Jasmine and Kirkland. Jasmine, who we've not really met to this point like that. And Kirkland keeps pushing Rebecca, and Jasmine's like, I really don't see her as a threat, though. And listen, if she goes out and she's not a traitor, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to be looking at you moving forward.
Yeah, which I feel like Kirkland takes willingly, but at the same time, if he's like, oh no, never mind, that seems even more suspicious by far to me. So I think he's kind of left in a no-win situation there.
Yeah, and Cedric, I feel like, has been a little bit sussy on Kirkland. Melinda has brought up that Kirkland seems strategic. So I think Kirkland is popping up on a whole lot of radars here.
This theory from Melinda is just the smallest window into what I'm hoping for from her this season, where she thinks that Kirkland and Rebecca staged a scene at breakfast where he tells her that she is bad because they're both bad and they are trying to divert attention. And that is so perfectly Melinda. I'm very excited to see how she continues on the season.
I'm so pumped because in my interview with Karine, one of the big standout moments was when I talked about how I want the delusional faithfuls that are wrong, loud and wrong. She was like, you're going to enjoy this season. And already I'm seeing signs, and I'm so here for this.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of very loud and wrong people that are already on the radar. So, and much louder and more wrong than Melinda, even honestly, here, despite this being quite the theory. But she could be brought up on the list at some point for sure.
Given the result of the banishment, do you think that Melinda's going to be like, okay, so it's not Kirkland then, because Rebecca was not a traitor? Or do you think it's going to be you were framing Rebecca, you must go?
Having watched a decent amount of Melinda on Drag Race, I would say probably all of the above.
Oh my God.
Yes. I think that we're gonna have all of those theories percolating in Melinda's mind. It's just a matter of which ones we are privy to, but I do think that she is thinking about all of the possibilities and probably talking about most of them to people.
Okay, well, we do see, speaking of talking to people, Kira and Netta talk, and Kira's like, I'm all in with you. Let's do this. It'd be great if the two women win at the end. And Netta's like, can you imagine? That'd be awesome. And then this is where we get Netta saying that she doesn't feel like Kira trusts her, which makes her not want to trust Kira. And so she'll go as far as she can, and then, let it go when it has to. I feel like Netta just can't get herself to trust Kira. She doesn't feel, I think once you have that feeling of I'm maybe threatened or don't trust this person, it's whether it's confirmation bias or not, like you're just not going to be able to get past that feeling. And the last thing you want is to let your guard down and then have it cost you the game. And then you're like, well, I was right. And then you're going to that is going to eat you. Basically.
It's just so hard. Like is there even a world where they can just go hand in hand to the end and win? Like, I don't think Netta's sure of that. So, and whether you can fully trust this person or you can trust this person to always be self-interested, I think that is much more of an accurate read on Kira. And I think that is valuable because you can predict what Kira is going to do a lot more accurately since she is very self-interested. But there will come a time, and I think Netta is looking for when is the exact right moment before that time.
Yeah, and I think for Kira, I trust what she's saying, because if I'm also, and again, this will be on, depends on how much Kira knows about Netta's Big Brother career. Because if I'm Kira, I'm riding with you to the end, Netta, because if we get to the final 5 or 4, someone's going to stand up and be like, No, the Big Brother player is the traitor again, isn't it? Let's
Yep.
just vote them out. So this is not a bad arrangement for Kira. Whether that's the case or not, though, I fully trust that Kira wants to work with Netta, at least from what we're seeing. And for Netta, I feel like she's recognized Kira as a formidable player from early, and that's why she just can't get herself to get in bed with Kira to ride it out into the final two.
I do completely believe that Kira wants to work with Netta till the end. I think that what
Yeah.
Netta is seeing is that she is seeing Kira will eventually realize I don't need Netta anymore, or I don't want Netta anymore. And she's seeing it before Kira sees it, but it will come.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like playing a game of, I guess, I don't know if this is going to be a good analogy. You let me know. It's like doing whose line? No, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Not whose line is it anyway? It's like doing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and you just were like, I don't know, if I get to 50K, I might just take it, right? Because it's 50 damn K. Then you get to 50K, and you're like, but the next one up is 100,000. Why not just risk it for the 100K? And I think that's the thing, is that, yeah, Kira will want to ride with you all the way, then maybe gets the final 6 and realizes no one's thinking it's me still. Do I just try and risk it for the 100K at this point, or however much the prize pot is? And I feel like Kira is someone who could get away with that.
Even just seeing someone that is capable of that thought is so dangerous. And I think that's why Netta is already like, she knows what it's like for her ally to cut her. I don't think that she wants to do that again.
Yeah, like that was a long time ago, but don't mean the wounds don't stay fresh. That's something you're probably going to think about a lot in your lifetime. Yeah. So listen, for Netta, I hope it doesn't happen again, because that would hurt Netta the most, but then it would hurt me second. I truly believe I would be the second most hurt by that.
Okay, we'll fight for it, whatever.
But I really like both of them. I really do. So I am firmly Team Traitors right now, but we'll see where that goes. So shall we talk about the round table now?
Please, I love the round table.
All right, you want to kick it off? Well, what are you so excited about?
I like that Mike took his moment and claimed his time. He comes in and says that he knows his name's going around. He was thinking about Rebecca, but there's a certain person planting little seeds, and they're either the worst faithful or they're a traitor, and he thinks it's time to get rid of Cedric. And I think this is a pretty decent target for Mike here.
100%. If your name's been out there, putting the target on somebody else, and especially if you are a faithful and you fully believe it to be the case, you're like, let's get rid of the noise, and then you'll see where we lie. Someone who's been planting little seeds, which is Cedric. This isn't wrong. Cedric has been very vocal in naming names, unapologetically so, without any necessary proof. But what's funny is Cedric's defense here only, for me, made him seem more suspicious. Because a lot of his counter arguments were, you're going on emotions right now. Put emotions aside. Stop being on your emotions, everybody. Which if I hear that, I'm voting you out on emotion and on game.
I love when Kira jumps in and he's like, we're not here for gossip. It's like, this game is mostly gossip. That's pretty much what this game is.
Yeah. Here's
a lot of these games are.
Yeah.
It's what a lot of these games are, but maybe this game most of all. It's just gossip. And so I think that Mike's calling out Cedric rather than keeping his target on Rebecca, where okay, he says Rebecca and she's like, it's not me. He says Cedric and he points all 10 fingers at 10 different people in the room. So I think that it takes much more increases the chances of the target not bouncing right back to you. And so I liked the move from Mike.
Yeah, I think Cedric being more argumentative at the round table, it only helps Mike's game, because he makes it more, he puts the spotlight more on himself. Whereas with Rebecca got shooters. If you say Rebecca's name here, Kira's going to jump in and be like, you're wrong. Also, if Rebecca does a good enough performance of defense, I think she'll be fine. Then you just kind of go by default because you're the dude who said her name. And while there are enough people there that are looking at Rebecca, I think that the solid move is to just point the finger at the most loud person in the room. Because also, not for nothing, in the event that you vote out Cedric and you're wrong, people will be like, that's fine. He was a bad faithful. Whereas if Rebecca goes out and she's a faithful, you're going to think, damn, we messed up. And you don't want to be at the center of the we messed up crew. You want to be at the center of, Yeah, we got rid of the loud faithful. That was really bad for us. But again, that's a net positive.
Yeah, I do think my favorite moment of the roundtable might have been someone saying that Cedric had clocked 8 people as traitors, which is just so funny. Oops, All Traitors Canada is a very fun addition that I would watch.
Yeah, Mary Jo was the vocal one at this roundtable talking about how the traitors took 10 grand from us. They stole it from us.
And she ends up bringing up like the people that were the most invisible on today's mission are the people that we really need to be looking at. And I thought that we would start pulling at that thread, but we kind of just moved right into the vote from that point.
Yeah, well, I really wrote in my notes right after. I was like, I'm worried Netta's not talked at all this roundtable. And I was like, I need Netta to be a little bit more vocal in this public setting to kind of offset some of the sus, because I think Kira off of that, no one's going to sus Kira right now. Whereas Netta, I could see this come up. So if Netta gets a little bit more conversation in a group setting, I'd be happier. Now, Scally, I was watching this live. My notes reflected because I wrote something down that we need to discuss, but I didn't write what caused it. So at one point, Michael John smiles at a comment that was made specifically about traitors. It was like a compliment to the traitors. Do you have the direct quote here for me?
I don't, unfortunately, have the direct quote.
No, it was something to the effect of the traitors are doing a really good job or something. And then the camera pans to Michael John kind of nodding in agreement and smiling. I was like, Michael John,
I love
stop.
that. That's such like golden retriever energy. Like I can't help it.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, that's so fun. Not super shocking in that regard, but it could be editing as well.
It could be. This could have been a smile from something else that they put in here for more of an effect. But Scally, so the votes come down. It feels like it's very dramatic at like the midway point. We got to a 6-4-3-1-1. And then it kind of just ends up being Rebecca.
Yeah, I did start to feel a momentum shift. Like I really thought maybe we are moving this in such a direction that Cedric might be going home. Thought Mike even for a minute, but no, despite having 1 to 3 to 4 to 5 to the rest, Rebecca does go home here.
Yeah, by a vote of 9-5-4-2-1, ultimately. Rebecca gets the overwhelming majority of the votes here, and is ousted. Obviously, is a faithful. So that is a sad state for Rebecca to be in. Ultimately, kind of becoming a victim of the game of telephone at the early stage of the game. I can't even fault her for anything she did. That would have been suspect.
Yeah, it seems like Kevin does mention this later, and we get flagged up Kevin and Lauren as a little duo. If that will be moving through this game, Kevin says that he was really worried about this girl alliance that might have been forming, and he felt like Rebecca would be a strong member of that. He's not, obviously, that would not include him, and so he thought, well, whether or not she was a faithful, not going to be helping him in the game.
Yeah. Let's go back to the starter of the roundtable in Mike, because Mike, he puts out Cedric's name. And then when he goes to vote, gagged me. I was floored. Mike votes for Michael John and cites the following. Yeah, before the game started, you told me you wanted to be a traitor, and I don't know, your answers seem rehearsed to me. And my God, the True Crimes podcaster knows a thing or two about detective work, because that was on point.
It was really, really good. Now, if only Dylan thought it was so good, because Dylan was like, I regret my vote. What the hell was that, Mike? And it's just at his throat in a way that I truly don't understand, because like Dylan also didn't vote for Rebecca and they didn't get a traitor. Like, why is he being so protective of Michael John here?
I don't know, I have no idea. Dylan was one of the 5 votes on Cedric here. So I'm not quite understanding this. What's wild to me is Enoch also voted Michael John, but we didn't. I feel like the outside of Dylan, the death row really got an invisible appearance in episode 2. We saw almost nothing from them. The only thing we saw was at one point Enoch talks about how Kira's not a traitor, super safe.
Yeah, we get that Lauren saying she doesn't want to be Girlene, and I was like, Girlene is great. Calm down. But
You can be Girling all the way until that final vote.
yeah, look, I get it, but otherwise, I don't know. I think that we had some other characters to introduce this week.
Definitely. And again, we had a couple characters that have still not made an appearance on the show. I think as of right now, if I was to tell you the two people who we've seen the least from through 2 episodes, I would say it's Lori and it's Pac-Man. Neither of them have been visible on the show like that.
Yeah, I would generally agree with that. I feel like we've gotten people talking about them. I feel like Pac-Man was having kind of a hard time in the voting process. But in general, they haven't been the most vocal or visible.
Yeah, the most we've seen or heard from about Lori is a lot of people do not trust her job at all.
Yeah.
They do not believe her to be a kindergarten teacher.
It's like, who's the most likely to be lying about their life? And I don't even think she was the correct answer, despite that being a major plot point on the show. So poor Lori.
Yeah, just going through it, kind of trying to find her people in the midst of everything. Mike did catch 3 votes from Aaron, Gail, and Lauren. So Mike's name. So now with Rebecca gone, the remaining people that caught votes were Cedric, Mike, Michael John, and then there was 1 sole vote from Jasmine for Aaron. So
interesting. I'm very interested to see Jasmine as a player. Now I know that she has her eye on Kirkland. It seems like she has the other eye on Aaron. So I'm very curious to see how she is, because if she is not going to be going along with the popular votes and is just going to be doing as she pleases, I think that's a very interesting person to have in the house.
It's kind of having a ultimate wild card, especially if she doesn't seem like a suspect for being a traitor. I think she could still get kept in because of the fact that she's going to vote like that. Because as long as it's not a vote for me and they're not going to vote with the house, why would I not keep Jasmine in? It is interesting. So for Aaron, it was because Aaron's been very quiet, which had come up about, like, let's look at the quiet people. But then Kirkland, I think this beef is only going to marinate between these two now.
Agreed. Now, I do like that Dylan continues his theory back at the house. It has expanded, not in just what was that, but now he is convinced that Mike knows Michael John outside of the house, which is an interesting theory considering it's trying to justify why Mike voted Michael John out.
Yeah, so Mike knows Michael John, and as a result, has tried to vote out Michael John, but also didn't vocalize Michael John's name until the vote. Dylan, are you overcooking, my friend? I think you're overcooking.
It's so funny. He's just like, you do podcast or something, you know each other. Like, okay, Dylan. I am truly would love to hear like the behind the scenes of what Dylan means and what strategy, because I'm not really following. I enjoyed Netta then talking to Mike and being like, oh, I didn't know you were the first person who brought up Rebecca's name. Like, I wasn't. It wasn't me.
Yeah. Gotta love this move, because then Mike's like, I'm on borrowed time. Listen, it's Michael John. I beg you, just watch him. Just watch him. Watch how he moves. And then Aaron talks about how he thinks Mike is too nice for this game, which I think I don't disagree with. Mike is like on his hands and he's like, please, I'm so dead tomorrow.
Yeah. I definitely agree. He's going to have a tough time moving forward. I am curious, out of the, I would say 2 names that really are coming up as distractions, and one that we thought would come up a little bit more as a distraction, between Mike, Cedric, and Dylan. Who do you think has the most potential in this game to last long?
Mike, Cedric, Dylan. When you say potential to last long, to make a impact, to win, or just to outlast the other 2?
I mean, I think win is a tall order at this point from what we're seeing from the 3.
For all
so
3.
I'm gonna go with a last longer draft here.
Oh God, it's tough, because I think of the 3, Dylan lasts the longest if we're going off of what we've seen so far. I think both Cedric and Mike are going to be popular names at the next vote anyway. With probably Cedric going first, then Mike.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm almost like inclined to bet on Cedric at this point. I think people have almost started to write him off. It's almost like the sus is boiled over and people don't really think about it
Okay.
anymore. But I don't
So
know. These three all very much in danger.
what kind of wager could we do with this? Because if I go Dylan, you go Cedric, what kind of wager could we play off?
All right, we can figure this out off pod, but I'm excited.
Yeah. If y'all got any suggestions, any like fun, harmless suggestions, feel free to add us at Pooyaism, at Brian_Scally. Now, Scally, what about the this idea? Let me throw you something. So obviously Mike has clocked Michael John and is pleading to Netta, please watch him, whatever. I think Netta can marinate this man. Kind of be like, I'm taking a risk here listening to you, Mike. If it is Michael John, I'm believing you. We're writing this out together. Kind of do what Jasmine did with Kirkland, where like, if it's not Michael John, I'm gonna have to look at you, Mike. And I think Mike has nowhere else to go but to just agree to this.
Oh my god. Threatening Mike seems so diabolical with his current positioning in the house. But you know what? I don't hate it. Like,
yeah.
Mike, I'm going out on a limb for you, Mike. I'm trusting you, but that would be very interesting. I do think that it would benefit Netta greatly to not have Michael John in the game. And that's before we see the rest of the episode.
Oh, that's before seeing the tower. Yeah, this is a slam dunk. I also think that if Dylan's running with this idea that the two Mikes know each other, I think it's great if Michael John goes out and is confirmed traitor, because how long before Dylan says, well, I do think they know each other and they're probably both traitors, so let's get her out Mike anyway.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a bad spot, as long as Mike doesn't turn around and go, you. Because in the event, some weird thing happens where this whole Michael John thing, Michael John goes out and then suddenly people are like, okay, Mike is safe and we listen to Mike now. You do not want Mike to say your name. But if you're successfully on the ground floor marinating the man, I think you're in a good spot, especially because he's the one who suggested Michael John's name, not you. So it's never going to come back to you and be like, well, Netta's the one who did that, so maybe Netta's a traitor. Like, that's not going to happen in that situation.
I think that's when Mike might wake up to a letter at his his door.
Not a recruitment letter, a murder letter.
No, yes, very much so.
Okay, good. Yes. Yeah. If he becomes like the main detective and everyone's like, okay, you know what? Scratch that. Mike's super trustworthy. He dead. He for sure dead.
Yeah, and I could see it. You know, I think that any of these three that we mentioned really as like the big distractions of the faithfuls, I think, you know, there is a window for any.
So let's now go back to the Traitors turret or conclave or tower. I really need to write down which one Canada uses, so I stopped doing this 3-word thing. But we immediately see Kira bring up to Michael John, be like, listen, I don't want to like shade you or give you like, but as a traitor to another traitor, you got very defensive very quickly today when your name came up. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, she's putting it nicely. You kind of messed up big time.
Should Kira be doing this?
Giving him tips?
Yeah.
You want to be as nice as possible to the potential traitor exiting so they don't blow your game up on the way out.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like it's going to give him time to think about what to do, though, is my concern. And I think that's kind of true of whether it be the traitors or a fellow faithful or whoever is in the game. I just worry that Michael John is, oh, Michael John, you got defensive. I think people are worried about you. I think he's more prone to get more defensive.
To do more. Yeah.
Start looking for an out more aggressively than he already is.
I wouldn't have given him the feedback of you got defensive a little too quickly. I would just be like, so your name came up. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Kind of like be the friend, the friendly shoulder and not so much the mentor.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that I need to give my potential next victim a heads up.
So let's talk about their short list of murders here. So Netta brings up Jasmine's name and says, if we get rid of Jasmine, Aaron's name kind of comes in the mix a little bit. I would say even Kirkland's name could come up in the mix, but that's someone who is not really contributing all that much to them, and they get out. It'll kind of make people look at these two, or worst case scenario, it kind of confuses people why Jasmine's gone. That's not bad. The next one is Kira, who suggests Nichelle, and Netta's like, I kind of agree. She comes across very faithful. We can't really She can't be seen as a traitor. That's not good for us. She won't get banished. So that's another one. And then Michael John gets to chime in, Scally. And Michael John's like, I would like Gail to go. How about Gail?
I would like Gail, and I won't hear anything to the contrary.
He literally said, I'm gonna go with Gail final answer. Like it's goddamn Family Feud.
I need to know so badly. Do they have to come to a consensus? And so he knows that, and he is just like, foot down, we're doing Gail. I don't care. I'm not listening. Or if they can just outvote him, this is a wild move that makes no sense whatsoever.
So let's run through why he wants Gail. Because what caused this, Scally?
It seems like he says Gail's not going to work with him. Gail's not someone who's going to benefit his game. I'm assuming he hasn't talked all that much to her. It seems like Netta and Gail are pretty decent, and so I'm wondering if he's trying to take a piece away from her there.
Well, it was like, wasn't it like Gail whispered something to someone? He's like, are they talking about me? They're so talking about me. Gail's coming after me. I need Gail gone. I was like, sir, 2 other people voted you. Gail did not vote you.
Yeah, I really question this logic. I don't know why the hard foot down. I do think Gail is like probably a good piece for Michael John to get off of the board. I'm not questioning that part.
I don't disagree.
But I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
So I think he needs to, and if he's going to push for this, do so in not at all this way.
Subtle. You have to be subtle. Like, if I want to piece off the board, I'm going to try and wedge it in there a little bit by kind of be like, what do we think about this person? What do we think about that person? I think these are the good arguments for this, bad arguments for this. But being like, no, it's Gail and that's final is never going to work, because now they know you want Gail out bad. They're not going to give you what you want. You are the most suspect of the 3 traitors. Why should they listen to what you have to say? And I have to imagine that they just outnumber him in votes and he can't get what he wants here.
That's how it seems. Is there any merit to Netta and Kira just acquiescing and giving Michael John what he wants?
I don't think so. I think if Michael John had a little bit more social standing in the game, had some like big allies that were very clearly numbers for him and was not detected, maybe. But the fact that his name is out there now, he's coming off defensive. He doesn't quite have like 1 or 2 people that we can pinpoint and be like, they're people who are going to bat for Michael John. All you're doing is giving Michael John what he wants to then get rid of him. And I don't trust Michael John to not blow up your spot on the way out. So
yeah,
I don't think you give him this at all, especially for Netta. I feel like, obviously last year we had a half and half season of like half reality show people, half not. This season, there's less. It's a cast of 22. And by my calculations, I think about 9 people have been on some kind of a show, not counting the internet. So no YouTube, no streaming. You do not want the first 2 people out to be 2 of those people from the murders. I feel like you want to hide in that as much as you can. I think for Netta as well, kind of feel like there's a low-key helicopters alliance there with Gail and Mary Jo. I wouldn't want to get rid of them anytime soon, especially if one of them goes and the other's like, well, I'm not a traitor, therefore it's Netta. If Gail goes, I think Mary Jo starts thinking it's Netta. You don't want that at all. So no, you definitely do not let him get his way here, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the only upside would be that he's not as on guard tomorrow, especially against you, but it doesn't feel like Michael John is ever going to be letting his guard down. And so you ultimately would just be taking away a vote that would probably be on your side for when he does turn against you very soon.
Right. Which if Michael John makes the decision to turn on you, you're getting him out. Like, I'm not concerned. I think you have more people than Michael John does. Now, if they wanted to kind of shoot the middle and go with some people that kind of are not tied and would be inoffensive kills, as in no one's really gonna have any ties there or susses come out of it, I think Pac-Man is kind of just sitting there ready to be taken out and the game continue. Now, obviously, Pac-Man could be doing stuff behind the scenes that they're not putting on the edit. But right now, I feel like Pac-Man's an easy one to boot there. Funnily enough, Nick not coming up at all. Obviously, they can't do Nick because Kira will probably have to be like, we can't do Nick. But Nick also is in the game, but we're not hearing anything about who's Nick talking about, sus of, aligned with. He's just there right now as Kira's brother.
Yeah, it's like her proxy.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if he kind of gets lost in the edit while Kira is here, and it's just he's kind of her sidekick in terms of editing.
Mhm.
But I would like to hear more from him. I know he said that he is a quiet person, a quiet player, so I don't know that we're gonna get him having his like breakout moment next week necessarily, but
I think it's gonna
it seems
come.
like he's definitely thinking. So I'm curious
Mhm.
to hear more thoughts from him.
I agree with you. Yeah, for me, I don't want Gale gone. I feel like there's so much more from Gale that we've yet to see. So boo that decision. I feel like I don't know who's gonna get murdered here. Now, Lori could be a shout as well, but I think Lori suffers from having a little too much sus on her for them to want to murder Lori. But at some point, you got to realize a lot of pieces on this board are susses. We can't keep all of them. We have to
Yeah.
sacrifice a one or two along the way.
I'm curious to see because if Jasmine gets like sniped here, that's great for Kirkland and
Oh yeah.
Aaron and a couple others. Where before she gets to really make good on her promise to suss him if Rebecca is in fact a faithful. So I think that's a possibility. But I don't know. I'm very torn between Jasmine and Nichelle. I think I'm leaning Nichelle.
To go,
Yeah.
I feel like that would make the most sense as well, based on what we've seen so far. Because I feel like you don't introduce the storyline with Jasmine only to take her out unless it immediately puts a spotlight on Kirkland, which I don't think is going to happen here. So Nichelle makes the most sense because they're not giving you Gale, Michael John. I'm sorry, especially with the way you double down. That ain't going to work. Because what is your reasoning? They're like, can we talk about it? And your reasoning can't be because she's going to come after me and you're going to let it happen. Like, that's not going to work.
When he's like, they're going to take me out and then they're going to recruit Gale and replace me. I was like,
I
but
would like to see that.
what would that look like? Because I did say I felt like I was teased with a all female traitors coven, but
Mhm.
was not given that. So I don't know. Michael John is proving to be a very entertaining cast member, so I'm not necessarily looking to lose him this early, but I do think that he could be in a little bit of danger next week.
It's been a minute since we've had a traitor that's been so obvious in not just like to the players, because last year a lot of people had already clocked Mel B early, but that the viewers have already also seeing the signs as it goes along. So I would be very much here to keep Michael John, but not at the cost of Neta or Kira. I think on a gameplay level, they're going to bring a lot more entertainment to the end game. Whereas Michael John already, I'm feeling comfortable enough to say, will not be winning this game. So
Yeah, he has an expiration date, and I'm trying to push that date off, but I know it's coming at some point.
right. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode here, Scally. Anything else?
No, I'm just excited to talk to the eliminated contestants and excited to see how this plays out for about the 17 people I could see being voted out next week.
Yeah, there's a couple people we can probably give exemptions to. Henoch, Lauren, Nick, take a load off. You're probably fine. You're chilling.
Thanks.
Mary Jo, I feel like you're okay. You can hang out. You're good. You know what? Trano and Tor, we've not talked about a lot. But also kind of hiding in this cast right now where they got no sus, but also no conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think that she and Melinda could be a very fun duo, and
I'd
we
be
got
here
to see
for it.
yeah, so I would be happy about that. Again, a good confessionalist that I'm just waiting to like come into the center of the storyline.
I think they got quite a few good people to do confessionals this season. Like I've been liking some of the snippets we're getting. I'm like, give me more. Give me a little bit more though.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this podcast. We'll be back with the exit interviews shortly. So again, check the YouTube channel for those, or in the pod feed. It'll be the next podcast ready to go. And then we'll be back next week with episode 3. Scally, let the people know where can they find you, what other things you have going on until we meet again.
Ooh, people can check me out on Twitter at Brian_Scally, on Twitch at twitch.tv/bscally, and over on the Free Agents podcast talking about the challenge. Season 40 with Matt Ligori has been a ton of fun, so people should go over there.
Hell yeah. And of course, y'all can find me on Twitter at Pooyaism. Find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Pooya. That's where I am when I'm not podcasting. But the podcasting slate is very busy right now. We're going to be talking the Circle finale this week. Season 7 has been a good time. Myself and Taryn have been covering it, so check that out. Liana and I came back together for season 12 premiere of The Masked Singer. We did make a huge announcement on that episode. You can check that out and then see where we're going with that moving forward. And I'm blanking. 90 Day Fiance. Liana will be joining me for this week's episode. So that'll be fun on the Hot Mess Express. Always a good time. I hope y'all had fun here with us. Again, if you would like to leave a rating and review at the start of the season, we would appreciate it. robiswebsite.com/traitors, TRAITORS. We hope you had a good time. See you next week. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.